Brett's in Boreham Wood. Brett, what would you like to say?
The problem I have with this whole conversation is anti-Semitism as a Jew. Now, what has happened in this conversation, we started with Big Ben projecting what I believe and what 90% of Jewish people believe is a genocidal chant from the river to the sea.
Except when Benjamin Netanyahu puts it in election material.
I understand that. Again, I understand that. But I think at the same time, he's doing that as a response to what he's hearing in...
But he's literally, I've seen him holding up a map which has Israel extending from the river to the sea and making it clear that that's his ambition. But you can't just gloss over the fact that the man who's currently leading the attack on Gaza routinely deploys the notion of from the river to the sea as an electoral lever.
Again, I don't want to talk about Gaza. I want to talk about...
Yeah, you have to, because the reason that phrase was projected onto the Elizabeth Tower was precisely because of what's happening in Gaza. So you can't talk about one without the other. Particularly, I want to talk about Lee Anderson. You brought Gaza into it. I'm not quite sure why.
Okay. Can we start again?
Yeah, of course we can.
Okay. 90% of Jews believe that chant is anti-Semitic.
Except when Benjamin Netanyahu uses it.
Now, I'm trying to talk about anti-Semitism, and you're just trying to talk over it to talk about...
No, I'm not, Brett. I'm trying to point out to you what everybody listening hears. They hear you saying that those words are toxic, but not acknowledging the fact that they're used by Israeli politicians quite regularly. But why are we having this conversation when we're talking about the Tories' problem with Islamophobia?
So, he was wrong, in saying what he did, but now the conversation has turned to Islamophobia, Any criticism of anything Islam-related is now Islamophobia.
No, that's not true.
Wait, I want to carry on.
Well, you can't say things that aren't true, Brett.
Now we've forgotten, James, about the anti-Semitism, which is absolutely rife, vile, and very, very threatening to the Jewish community. Now, what I'm saying is now we're having this whole conversation about one MP out of 650 who may have said something pretty damn silly, but we've now moved the whole conversation away from anti-Semitism.
But the reason why this conversation is, I mean, you must understand this, Brett, the reason why this conversation is unfolding in the way that it is on this day is as a direct consequence of a former deputy chairman of the Conservative Party indulging in base Islamophobia. And the fact that you don't want that conversation to be had is just a little odd. I would say to you that both conversations can be held. Why do you want to close one of them down?
I don't. I just feel...
You've literally phoned in to object to the fact that we're talking about Islamophobia, Brett, and that's just weird. Everyone's heard the conversation, Brett. Everyone's heard exactly what you said. That is, you rang in to complain that we were talking about Islamophobia.
Well, because of my reasons. We were having a proper conversation about anti-Semitism, how to stop it.
And today we're having a conversation about Islamophobia. Why can't we do both?
I've just told you. You turned me coming on your show to talk a little bit about anti-Semitism.
On the contrary, Brett.
Me being ridiculous.
On the contrary, you rang in to complain that we were having a phone-in about Islamophobia. You've ended up accusing Dawn Butler of anti-Semitism and me of contempt for the Jewish people. Have a great day, Brett.